Hello and welcome. Today's video surrounds this, a very old E-flat soprano cornet. Now this was made by the Besson and Co. company in 1910, so it is 108 years old this year. And it is in remarkable condition even though it is 108 years old. So before we go into some of the mechanical aspects of this, I want to just point out the stamping on the bell here. Now it's got prototype written on or stamped onto the bell here, and I don't actually know if this instrument is a specific prototype or whether the prototype was just simply a model that they produced, because there are an awful lot of instruments that have prototypes stamped on them, and in the sort of modern definition of the word prototype you wouldn't really expect those to actually flood the market. Alongside the instrument is this ridiculously tiny, by modern standards, mouthpiece, and this mouthpiece also has Besson and Co. prototype stamped onto it, size 0, and it has got quite a bit of plating coming off and things like that, but it matches really nicely with this instrument. I've got a number of cornet mouthpieces of this period, but this one seems to do the best job. Mechanically, this instrument is in pretty good condition. I've just actually had it serviced, so all of the things that are supposed to work on it do work. The valves have got new felt, so they are pretty quiet. The tuning slides move very easily. The trouble though is that the compression on the valves is pretty poor, and that's because the valves simply are just very, very well used. So you don't have any original plating left on the valve. These are all down to the raw brass, and as a consequence of that the valves wiggle slightly. There shouldn't be any slop in the valves, but there is a bit of wiggle. However, it is nothing as bad as some of the other instruments that I've played. Despite that slop, and despite the air leaks and the poor compression on the valves, you can actually still get a good sound out of this, and you don't have a whole lot of airiness as what I've experienced with some other instruments of this age. A couple of interesting things to note is that the top of the first valve here would normally be sort of parallel. You'd have the entry and exit ports for the first valve tuning slide on top of each other, whereas on this one let me think, either the entry or the exit, one of them, is on top of the bell, the start to the bell there. That's a little bit interesting, something to know. But probably the bit that's a little bit more interesting to me is this. This is where your lyre would get attached to. You'd undo the screw, put your lyre in there, and that holds it on so you can have, a lyre holding your music. What this instrument has is this little screw which you can loosen and you can adjust where your lyre happens to be. You can move this along and presumably also take it off. Yes, you could actually take it off entirely, and it's interesting. I've never seen this before on an instrument that I've actually got or owned or whatever, so that's interesting. The last thing that I want to mention about these very old soprano cornets is that they are notoriously difficult to play. If you're in a band situation and you need to produce a consistent volume, or you need to play in that sort of environment, it is very, very difficult to keep up. They don't make as loud of a noise as the newer soprano cornets do. The resistance through the instrument is a lot higher than modern soprano cornets, and it just isn't quite as fun. When I'm here in my garage playing to myself, it's not normally too noticeable, but if I was to join even a rather small band with one of these, I'd be struggling very, very soon compared to what my capabilities would be like with a more modern instrument. So that's just something to be aware of if you acquire an instrument like this and want to actually try and play it in a musical group. Thank you very much for watching.